Hi again, everybody. My name is Greg Anderson, and this is the Good Timekeeping Show with Greg Anderson. Today, I want to give you 6 reasons to love mechanical watches. Now, if you've been watching my channel lately, first of all, thank you very much for that. Honestly, at a time like this, it is a very good thing to have a successful YouTube channel. So I thank you for making that happen for me. Now, if you've been watching those recent videos, you've probably seen an awful lot of videos where I praise quartz watches and where I review quartz watches. And you think that anything beyond the brand name Casio, I probably never touch it. And you probably think that I very rarely get anything mechanical for timekeeping. And that's mostly true. What you maybe didn't realize is that before I collected all these watches, I was a clock collector, and I still have over 100 clocks in the house. Just about every wall has a clock on it, which is funny because when I got married, my wife moved in, and she's clocks all over on every wall, and she let me keep them there, and on different cabinets and countertops and shelves and whatever. And so at first she thought that was a little over the top. But now, whenever she goes to visit other people and she has to look around to find the clock, it's a little bit disconcerting for her. Usually it's just, if there's a wall, you just look at it and there'll be a clock over there, at least at our house. So it turns out most of the clocks I have are quartz clocks because I didn't maybe spend a fortune on these things. I would love to have something elegant like a big, giant curio-style cabinet grandfather clock. But at the moment, it's a little bit cost prohibitive. And that's always been a factor in my collecting. And also, I don't necessarily have a place to put it right now. But I'd love to have one of those cabinets, kind of with all the glass shelves, and you kind of put a light in there and light everything up, and all the pretty brass pieces on the grandfather clock movement. And I'd put some watches and clocks on display inside the curio cabinet, and it'd be wonderful. And maybe that'll happen someday. But in the meantime, okay, I've got my watch collection, and I do admit that quartz is convenient for me. I feel like I know more about quartz watches, and I trust the Casio brand in particular. So if I see something from Casio and it looks interesting and I kind of like the description and the features, I'll just get it. And I've had really great luck with that. So with the mechanical watches, I don't know that much about them. I don't know maybe what's the good brand, and they can get very pricey. And then you look at one that doesn't cost a lot, and you think, well, there must be something wrong with it if it's not expensive. So I'm learning about this, but I did want to just show you that I do have a great appreciation for mechanical watches. Here's a new one I just got, and in a few days I'll have a review on this one now that I'm getting used to it. So far I love it. This is skeletonized, so you can see the stuff that's in there. And this brings me to the number one reason on my list of reasons why we love mechanical watches. It's the craftsmanship of it all. If you are into mechanical watches these days, there is something special about what you're doing. Because most people, they just go for the simplest solution, go down to Walmart, pay $20 or less for a watch, and it'll work, and it'll tell them time, it'll do what they want it to do. But for many of the rest of us, it's the craftsmanship of it all. There's something special. There's a reason you chose a watch that's that style, that size, that weight, and from that company. So there's an appreciation there that I can tell by the fact you're wearing a mechanical watch that you've thought this through. Number one is craftsmanship. Number two is the engineering. And see, I think it's just marvelous to know that for hundreds of years, the basic engineering, the principles and concepts and basic design of our mechanical watches, they were produced hundreds of years ago, and all that we have now is just a refinement and a perfection of this technology that was developed many centuries ago. And that is a remarkable thing, which leads me to number 3 is the legacy. That you become a part of the legacy when you decide to get into mechanical watches. Now, that seems a little strange to me to say that, because 50 years ago, mechanical watches were the norm. So to say it's a legacy, jumping back 50 years ago, but I think that's true. Honestly, my dad had a watch when I was growing up, 50 years ago, and I remember it well. and it was a Seiko, and I looked it up recently, and it's worth like $3,000. My dad's watch that he had, that I used to, sitting in church, I'd say, "Hey, Dad, can I play with your watch?" And so he would hand me his watch, and I would fiddle with it, and it had a little button that would reset the second hand and kind of do a stopwatch thing. And I fiddled around with my dad's Seiko watch as a kid, and that watch is long gone. I don't know whatever happened to it, but that particular watch was kind of an Olympics tribute sort of watch that Seiko made in the 60s. And again, I saw one for $3,000 on eBay. So you can create a legacy by having a watch that's something that's worthy of passing on to the next generation. And I think you kind of adopt yourself into the legacy when you very carefully choose the watch you want, because again, you are paying tribute to the great engineering that went into originally pocket watches, maybe seagoing chronometers, and as this technology hundreds of years ago became small enough that eventually it became wristwatches, and then for a long time, mechanical wristwatches kind of fell out of favor, but there still are, very, very few, relatively speaking, but some very passionate people that are into mechanical watches, and I have a great respect for that legacy, which brings me around to reason number 4, and this is a perfectly valid reason to love your mechanical watch. It's a fashion statement. It says something about who you are, what you've chosen to wear on your wrist. And when it's a mechanical watch, I know that you've thought about this. You've thought about what it means. Now, it may be a status symbol, maybe a snob thing. If I wear a Rolex homage, or what you might call a fake Rolex, then you'll have an attitude about me. But if I know enough to appreciate your authentic Rolex that you're wearing, I'll have an attitude about you. And if you're wearing anything down somewhere in the middle, I might have thoughts and attitudes about that. So that's kind of a double-edged sword as far as, what is it a snob thing? Are we feeding into a kind of behavior we don't really like? Or is it the kind of thing where we appreciate each other and the choices we've made and the fashion choices we've made and the decisions we've made and the things that appeal to each other? I can appreciate what appeals to you even if something else appeals to me. So then the next reason for loving mechanical watches is the interactive nature of it. So with a watch like this, okay, a great Casio watch, G-Shock watch. This one is solar powered, so I don't have to change the battery. It's radio controlled or also Bluetooth controlled to set the time by itself. So all I do is set the time zone, and after that I'm done. I'm not changing batteries. I'm not setting the time. If I'm not using the stopwatch and the countdown timer and the alarms on this watch, then I'm not really even interacting with it. I put it on in the morning and wear it and go about the day, and it does its thing, almost not wanting me to interfere with what it's doing, and occasionally I look at it. Okay, so there's kind of a distance there, whereas with a mechanical watch like this, you are interacting with it. If it's the kind of watch like, this is just like the very first watch I had as a kid, I had to wind this every day. In fact, I wound it too much, I think, and that's why it stopped working when I was a kid. Or this one that I also had as a kid, and so, you had to wind this one every day. And this one here, now this is what we used to call self-winding, and today they call it automatic. So it's got a little rotor in there, and as I move around and just do my regular daily movements with my wrist, that's enough movement to move that rotor that will automatically wind the mainspring on this watch, but there's still an interaction there. I have to wear it, and I have to be out and about with it. If I leave this sitting on my nightstand for a couple days, it's going to stop running, and I'll have to wind it a little bit, and then let my motion keep it going after that, and double check and synchronize the time and all this stuff. There is that interaction, and then there's the occasional maintenance. So I'll have to have it interact with someone who's an expert on how to maintain and clean and just lubricate and otherwise keep this in top working condition. So every now and then it just demands that kind of interaction, and that's another reason we love these watches. They demand our attention, and we in return give them our attention, and we like giving them our attention. So this brings me to why is there a 707 on the table here? Okay, I'm going to tell you another quick story about my dad. My dad was an aeronautical engineer by trade, okay? So when he started out, he worked for the FAA, part of the team that certified the Boeing 707 for commercial use back in the 1950s. So that's why I have this, this great Boeing 707 model with the insignia from Pan Am from the 50s and 60s, because the first time folks saw 707s, that's about what they looked like. Now, my dad worked for the FAA, and he soon got into more like management type positions with the FAA. So that meant that he knew at the time that becoming a manager meant he would no longer be current with engineering. So he could talk to engineers, supervise engineers, and keep the work going with these engineers, but he would never really be on the front lines anymore as an aeronautical engineer. And well, I think there was some frustration there that he was able to work out doing other things that required engineering. And one of the things he loved to do was work on our cars on the weekends. So Saturdays, a few hours every Saturday working on the cars, to the point where this was just normal to me until one day one of the neighbor kids said, your family, you drive Ford cars, and Ford cars are really terrible. I can tell because your dad's always working on them. And I thought, well, no, that's really not the point. I think the point was I had an engineer in the house who needed to do engineering. If he wasn't going to be, doing it professionally with the aircraft anymore, he did it on the cars at home. And he did some amazing things with the cars. Fun little things, like we had a sedan and a station wagon that had what was an almost identical engine. One was 351 cubic inches and the other was 400 cubic inches, but they were about the same engine except for the bore and stroke dimensions on that. So if there was a problem in the sedan, he would theorize what was wrong with the sedan, and then he would take that part and swap it with the one on the station wagon. And if the problem moved to the station wagon, then he knew that he had properly diagnosed what was wrong, and then he would zero in on that problem. And that was just one of the brilliant things. I could tell you stories about some engineering brilliance there. So that's another reason to love mechanical stuff. Every good man needs a good project to keep him out of trouble. And if you've got a clock or a watch that demands your interaction, you're going to be doing just fine. All right, so then the next reason to love these things is the accuracy, okay? And so I did a video not long ago where I talked about over 2.5 million seconds pass every month. So if your watch or clock were off by just 1%, that would be, it would work out to over 7 hours of error in a month. And as we know, mechanical clocks and watches are much better than that. Now, quartz clocks and watches, they're good to within 15, 20 seconds a month, sometimes even better than that. So it's kind of rare to get a mechanical watch that is that accurate. It's still better than 99% accurate, but it's not quite as good as quartz accuracy. So the accuracy argument, I lose half a point there on accuracy because it's just not as accurate as quartz. And some people are good enough that they can kind of regulate these things, figure out that when I'm not wearing it, if I keep it in this position or that position, or they find little tricks to help with the accuracy. Sometimes even including opening it up and kind of fine-tuning something inside of it. So the accuracy question, I think, is just, it's not really a question anymore. These watches interact with you. So if it turns out that every few days you just need to pull the crown out and do a little tweak to make it to synchronize with something else, that's fine. That's why you got the watch, because you love to kind of fiddle with it. And so I'm not even going to get into whether accuracy is a plus or a minus here. So maybe I'll just give it a half a reason why we love is the accuracy question. But there is a bonus here of why we love our mechanical watches, and that is that generally speaking, they retain their value very well. So if someone is thinking about getting an expensive, high-end mechanical watch as kind of an investment sort of thing that they can kind of buy and sell and trade. That's a valid thing to consider. I don't think I'm knowledgeable enough to play in those markets, but some people are, and that's a wonderful reason to get into this. So it's, they're fine pieces of jewelry, and they are valuable. The rumor is that they used to issue Rolex watches, dive watches, to Navy SEALs. These $10,000 watches that these Navy SEALs would wear when they were going out and do their diving and whatever. And one of the rumors was the reason that among the reasons for choosing the Rolex was that they were valuable. Therefore, if one of these Navy SEALs got in trouble somewhere and they needed to cash in quick to get resources, they could use the Rolex watch for its value, trade it, sell it somehow, and then use that trade to get resources to do something else. I'm not sure that was an actual reason for issuing Rolexes to the Navy SEALs like they used to do, but that seems plausible to me that could work. So, more power to you if that's what you do. If you're not really knowledgeable on buying and selling and trading and getting into the real high-end expensive watches, I would say hold off until you know more. But if you are in that world, hey, more power to you. So anyway, love the mechanical watches. I really, really do. I don't have a lot of them, but part of that is just the cost and convenience and the abundance of these cool Casio watches that overwhelm me sometimes. But I did just get this one, and it's not super high-end, but so far it looks great. It's fun to watch. This is a skeletonized watch, so I can see some things moving in there. I'll do a full review of this one soon, but I wanted to clear the air and make everybody know sincerely, I love clocks and watches, be they mechanical or quartz or whatever. And so I'll get deeper into that, and I will give you a full-blown review of this one pretty soon. So therefore, I hope you will make it a point to join me again in another upcoming episode of The Good Timekeeping Show.